Despite not having any audio-related content, I've been receiving a lot of questions on how I record my audio. So I was thinking of making a video about this, and coincidentally, Fifine reached out to us to review this very interesting piece of microphone. Hey guys, Andre here, and now I want to talk about the Fifine K658. I did agree on reviewing this under the condition that I would be critical and only give our honest findings about the product, and the results actually surprised me. To those who aren't familiar with Fifine, this brand has actually been getting the attention of a lot of content creators, as they've been making pretty good contenders against a lot of the mainstream microphones that we usually see around. They have a close, if not better competitor against the famous Blue Yeti, and they also have a contender in the ultra-affordable condenser mic category. This one that we have here is a USB dynamic microphone. To those of you who aren't too technical, there are a lot of types of microphones, but the two most common ones that we would usually see are the condensers and the dynamic. Generally, condenser mics are more sensitive and would capture more detail from its source, while dynamics are less sensitive and would require you to be closer to the microphone. It would also perform better in untreated rooms and would help us achieve a more quiet sounding environment. Also, most radio booths and DJs use dynamic microphones. So if you want that DJ sound, dynamics would be your best bet.
Okay, so moving on to the K658, let's first see what we are getting inside the box. Here it is, the K658 podcast microphone. The box does feel quite heavy, and I didn't expect the box to be this big. So here we can see, we have the K658, the user manual, and here we have the shock mount, a USB-C to USB-A cable, and a foldable desk stand, which is pretty heavy. I actually really do like that it is, because we wouldn't want our microphone falling down while we're using it. And the USB cable also looks pretty good, being quite long, which means we won't need any extension cables, plus it comes with a Velcro tie, so it can be neatly packed if we are to use this with portable setups. Now let's check the unit itself. Quite noticeably, it does have a decent weight to it. It's not heavy, but it's also not super light, which is a good sign of quality. The body is made of metal mixed with some plastic parts like this gain dial. Underneath, we have a USB-C connector and a 3.5mm headphone jack for monitoring. Assembly is quite self-explanatory. There's no need for a manual to figure this out. It's just the shock mount on the tripod and the mic on the shock mount. It doesn't seem like it would fit other mounting brackets though, so we're forced to use only the shock mount. The design is reminiscent of what the standard Shure SM7B looks like, but with a bit more flair. But what sets this one apart is this does have a power button, which would be really handy for when we are live streaming. It's a capacitive button which lights up red when turned off and green when powered on. There are also more lights on the device with the RGB lighting underneath, which can also be powered off through another capacitive button if that's not something that you prefer. Now, if you're curious on how this microphone sounds, you are actually listening to it. I have the K658 plugged straight into the laptop and I'm recording this in Audacity. I did normalize the volume to get it to optimal levels and added a slight EQ to remove the harshness on the top end. But here is how it sounds like without any processing. Right now you are hearing the sound from the K658 without any processing, and this is raw straight from the microphone. And what do you guys think? Do you think it sounds good? Personally, I am quite surprised. As you can hear, it does reject the room noise pretty well, and it does have that professional sound to it. To my ears, it has what I would call an edgy sound. It's gritty and detailed, which actually makes this microphone even more interesting, as that is actually a characteristic that we would observe more on condenser microphones. The sound profile does seem to favor the high end more and cuts a little bit on the low end. And to me that's okay, since that's usually the kind of post-processing that we would do after our recording, as this boosts the natural sound frequencies of our voice, making it sound clearer. But what's good about this mic is that if you're live streaming and you don't have access to a third-party EQ, this mic will actually give you a similar effect without having to process it. Without any processing, I do feel that the boosted frequencies on the high end tend to get a little too sharp for my voice, which is why I would cut down a little bit on EQ, but our results may vary since this would depend on the type of voice that you have. I did find that plosive rejection isn't very good, as this does seem to pick up plosives easily, but after a while, with just some proper mic technique, I would say that it's pretty manageable. I can see this working for portable podcast setups where we don't have any control over our environment and you would just want to make your content. This will give you that isolated sound.
Also, this does work with smartphones and tablets. So if you're into live streaming or if you're doing Zoom meetings and you would want to level up your sound over the others, you can simply plug this straight to your phone through a USB-C adapter and you're good to go. One more thing that I really like is the latency-free monitoring. This is a very big convenience compared to my other setup where monitoring is basically unusable because of the delay. On the K658, there's no noticeable latency listening to your recording through the headphone out. Now, what do I dislike about this microphone? Well, first, it would have been much nicer if we would have other mounting options. Using an uncommon type of bracket means that we're almost stuck with having to use the included shock mount, which I think is just pretty big. I also would have preferred if we would have the option to choose which LEDs would light up so it would match our setup. The K658 here in the Philippines is priced at 4,500 pesos and is targeted towards streamers and podcasters. And I think for that use, it does an amazing job. But what I really do think sets this mic apart is the way it looks. At this price point, this has got to be the best looking dynamic mic that you could get. It looks good on camera and it sounds good, which I think a lot of streamers would love. I also like the fact that everything that you need to get started is already in the package. And it's really just that easy to use. I know a lot of content creators would agree. The less steps it would take for you to do something, the more chances of you actually getting things done. If you're curious on how this would perform on actual use, the last two videos in this channel are actually voiced using the K658. And if you happen to be interested in getting this, we do have links in the description where you could get this, so you might want to check that out. Anyway guys, let me know if you like reviews like this by leaving a like and a comment. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Tech Local and I'll see you on the next video.